Every Grey Knight is forged from pain and sacrifice. Their memories erased, their humanity stripped away, their minds rebuilt to house the Solarians' fury. They battle horrors that would break any normal space marine. But what happens when a weapon remembers it was once a man? I am one of the few who remember. Not because I was spared, but because I was made to become what I am. Memory is our enemy in the Ordo Vespera. To know too much of what lurks beyond the veil is to invite corruption. Yet here I stand, Brother Calith Varos of the Seventh Brotherhood, a contradiction forged in the crucible of the Solarians' most brutal mercy. They say we are born in blood and pain. They are wrong. We are born in Erisea. The cold winds of Titan howl against my meditation chamber. The moon of Saturn houses us. The Grey Knights, the Solarians' final sanction against the greatest threat to mankind. Here in chambers of silver and adamantium, we prepare for wars that must never be recorded. I kneel before the shrine of our founder. My armor removed, my scarred flesh exposed to the biting cold. Each scar represents a memory taken from me, a piece of who I once was, sacrificed to make room for what I needed to become. 666 rituals of purification, one for each of the daemon lords our order has catalogued since its founding. My body bears the mark of each ritual, silver runes embedded into my flesh, wards against possession that burn even now, 10,000 days after they were first carved. The pain never leaves, it is not meant to. Pain is clarity in a universe of lies. I remember the day they brought me to Titan. I was young, perhaps 7 Terran years, though time means little to those marked by the warp. They found me in the ruins of a hive city on Cadia, surrounded by the corpses of my family, all slain by a daemon of Tench, all except me. I had killed it with nothing but my mind, a psychic eruption that burned the creature from reality. But it had mocked me in return, left a sliver of its essence inside my soul. The Inquisitors said I should have been executed on the spot. But one among them, a man whose face I can no longer recall, saw potential. He saw a weapon that could be forged from my tainted existence. The first memory they took from me was my name, not with technology or psychic arts, but with simple, brutal repetition. For 1 year, I was called only boy or recruit or filth. Any attempt to speak my birth name resulted in beatings so severe that my bones would shatter beneath my skin. By the 2nd year, I could no longer remember it, even if I tried. By the 3rd, I stopped trying. When they deemed me empty enough, they began to fill me again. First with knowledge of the enemy, endless scrolls of forbidden texts that detailed the nature of chaos, the true names of demons, the corrupting influence of the warp. Knowledge that would drive most men mad was poured into my mind like molten metal into a mold. Those who broke under the strain were dragged away in the night. We never spoke of them again. Those who survived moved to the next phase of our creation. The physical transformation came next, the implantation of the gene seed. For normal space marines, this process takes years. For us, it was compressed into months of agony. Our bodies rejected the sacred organs more violently than any chapter, our psychic nature fighting against the foreign flesh. Of the 30 recruits who began the process with me, only 12 survived. I remember their screams, not because I witnessed their deaths, but because their psychic echoes were burned into the walls of the fortress monastery. Sometimes in the deepest meditation, I can still hear them. Then came the mind sculpting, psychic surgery performed by the most powerful librarians of our order. They cut away parts of my consciousness like gardeners pruning a bonsai tree, removing anything that might give chaos purchase in my thoughts. Fear, doubt, mercy toward the enemy, all excised with surgical precision. They replaced these human weaknesses with hypno-conditioned reflexes and psychic triggers that would allow me to channel my powers without risk of possession. The final stage was the soul binding. We were taken to Terra, to the Golden Throne itself. There, in the presence of what remains of the Solarian, our souls were seared with his divine power. The pain of this process cannot be described in any human language. It is like being turned inside out. Every atom of your being unraveled and rewoven with golden fire. Some say it is the closest a living being can come to experiencing death while still returning. I know only that when it was done, I was no longer entirely myself. Part of me now belonged to him, a constant presence in the back of my mind, watching, judging, ready to burn me away should I ever falter. When it was complete, I had become Brother Varos, Grey Knight of the Seventh Brotherhood. My past was ashes, my future was war, my present was eternal vigilance. We are the Solarian's final sanction, his silver bullets aimed at the heart of the great enemy. We do not seek glory or recognition. Indeed, those we save will never know we existed. Imperial citizens who witness our operations are executed or mind-wiped as a matter of protocol. Better they believe their world was ravaged by plague or civil war than know the truth of what lurks beyond the veil of reality. For 3 centuries I have served, 300 years of battles that will never be recorded in any Imperial history, 300 years of watching worlds burn to prevent the spread of demonic corruption, 300 years of executing loyal
Imperial citizens whose only crime was bearing witness to the truth. This is the burden we carry. This is the price of being the Emperor's most secret weapon.
And now, as I kneel in my chamber, I receive the summons I have been expecting. A new mission, a world in peril, a demon rising. The cycle begins again, as it always does, as it always must. The briefing chamber is austere, like all rooms in our fortress monastery. No decorations adorn the walls, save for the sigils of protection etched into the silver-plated walls. 8 of my battle brothers are already present when I arrive, each kneeling in perfect symmetry around the central holothic projector. None speak, none need to. Our thoughts brush against each other. Psychic whispers acknowledging my presence without the clumsiness of words. Grandmaster Vardan stands at the head of the chamber, his ancient face a mask of scar tissue and augmentatic replacements.
You haven't done as thing the knows to it.
900 years of service have left little of his original form intact, yet his mind remains razor-sharp, his psychic presence a crushing weight that forces even veteran battle brothers to avert their thoughts. When he speaks, it is with a voice that has commanded the death of worlds, a voice that has pronounced extermina, ordered the sacrifice of billions to save trillions more, a voice that has never known doubt. The world of Phobos Tursus has fallen. He tells us, once a sanctuary world, for the Adeptus Astro Telepopatha, it housed thousands of psychers in training, those deemed strong enough to serve the Imperium, but not yet fully controlled. 3 days ago, all communication with the planet ceased. A single astropathic message escaped before silence fell. Just 3 words: they are coming. An inquisitorial vessel in a nearby system diverted to investigate. They found the planet transformed. Where once there were training facilities and meditation chambers, now there are twisted spires of flesh and bone. Where once the world glowed with the light of human psychic potential, now it pulses with the sick rhythms of the warp. The Inquisitor ordered an immediate quarantine and requested our intervention. This is not unusual. We have cleansed corrupted worlds before, but Vardan reveals the true horror that makes this mission unique. Phobos Turtus housed over 1 million psychers, 1 million minds touched by the warp, now given over to chaos. The psychic death scream of their corruption has torn a wound in reality, a gateway through which something ancient is emerging. The Inquisition believes it to be a greater daemon, perhaps even a daemon prince using the combined psychic energy of the fallen psychers to manifest in the material realm. Our mission is simple in objective, if not in execution. We will make planet fall at the epicenter of the corruption. We will locate the entity that orchestrates this affront to the Emperor. We will destroy it, scouring its presence from reality with bolter, blade, and psychic fire. Then the Inquisition will cleanse what remains with the holy flames of Exterminatus. 9 of us against the corrupted remnants of 1 million souls. 9 silver warriors against the darkness of the warp. The odds do not concern us. This is what we were made for. This is why we endured the trials of our creation. This is why we sacrificed our humanity. As Vardan concludes the briefing, he assigns our roles. I am to be Juster for this mission, commander of the strike force in his absence. It is an honor I accept with a simple nod. Honors mean little to our kind. They are merely acknowledgments of duty, not accolades to be celebrated. Still, to lead my brothers against such a foe stirs something in me that I thought had been excised centuries ago, a faint ember of pride. We adjourn to the armory where the chapter serfs prepare our warga in solemn silence. These mortal men, mind-wiped and psychically warded, serve us without knowing fully what we are or what we face. Their ignorance is their protection. Still, even they can sense the gravity of our mission in the set of our shoulders, the tension in our psychic auras. My Aegis armor is brought forward, each piece blessed and inscribed with wards of protection. The gray ceramite plates are inlaid with silver sigils, each one a defense against demonic influence. As the serfs lock each component in place, I recite the litans of purity, focusing my thoughts on the task ahead. The armor is more than physical protection. It is a spiritual bastion, a fortress for my soul in the coming battle. Next comes my nemesis force, halberd, a master-crafted weapon imbued with my own psychic energy over centuries of use. Its blade glows with a faint blue light, responding to my touch as if alive. In truth, a part of my essence resides within the weapon, making it an extension of my will as much as my arm. With it, I have banished entities that defy description, severing their connection to the material realm and casting them back into the warp from whence they came. Finally, I take up my Stormbolter, checking its sacred mechanisms with the precision drilled into me through countless centuries. Each bolt round in its magazine has been blessed, the casings inscribed with microscopic prayers of destruction. When fired, each shell carries not just explosive death, but a fragment of the Emperor's wrath. As I stand fully armed, a chaplain approaches. His black armor contrasts with our silver plate, his skull helm revealing nothing of the face beneath. He carries 9 small vials of sacred oil. One by one we kneel before him, and one by one he anoints our foreheads with the oil, drawing the symbol of the Ordo Malus upon our brows. This final blessing is more than ceremony. The oil contains trace elements of silver and psychically charged minerals that will strengthen our connection to the Emperor in the corrupted environment we are about to enter. When the rituals are complete, we make our way to the hangar bay where our strike cruiser awaits. The Spear of Dawn, veteran of 1,000 secret wars, its hull scarred with marks that no tech
priest outside our order would recognize. Wounds inflicted by weapons that should not exist in the material universe.
As we board, I feel the familiar weight of isolation settle upon my shoulders. Once we leave Titan, we will be alone in the darkness. 9 warriors against the endless malice of the warp. The knowledge does not frighten me. Fear was burned from my mind centuries ago, but I recognize the tactical reality of our situation. Must succeed, or Phobos Tertius will become a staging ground for a demonic incursion that could threaten the entire sector. The journey to our destination will take 17 days in the war. 17 days of meditation and preparation, of studying what little information the Inquisition has provided, of honing our minds and bodies for the trial to come. 17 days to prepare for what may be our final battle in the Emperor's service. As the strike cruiser breaks orbit around Titan, I retire to my cell. There, surrounded by wards of protection and icons of the Emperor, I begin the first of many meditations. I clear my mind of all distractions, focusing only on the mission ahead. In the silence between my thoughts, I hear something. A whisper so faint it might be imagination. But we are taught that imagination is another weakness, another doorway for chaos to exploit. The whisper grows no louder, but neither does it fade. It remains at the edge of perception, like the memory of a dream upon waking. I should report this anomaly to the chaplain immediately. Any potential compromise must be addressed, any weakness purged. And yet I hesitate. The voice does not carry the taint of the warp. It feels almost familiar, like an echo of something long forgotten. Perhaps it is merely fatigue, a product of the constant vigilance required of our kind. Perhaps it is nothing at all. Still, as our vessel enters the swirling insanity of the warp, I make a decision that will alter the course of my existence. I choose to keep this whisper to myself, at least until I can determine its nature. It is the first secret I have kept from my brothers in 3 centuries of service, the first thread of individuality in a life defined by collective purpose. I do not yet know if this choice is wisdom or folly. I know only that as the whisper continues, soft and persistent at the edge of my thoughts, something long dormant within me begins to stir. Not corruption, not taint, but something far more dangerous to one of my kind. Something I thought had been excised from my being during the trials of my creation. Curiosity, the void of the warp surrounds our vessel, reality itself peeled back to reveal the seething madness beyond. Our Gela field holds firm, creating a bubble of real space that protects us from the entities that would tear our souls from our bodies given the slightest opportunity. Within this fragile sanctuary we prepare. Our daily rituals are unvarying. 6 hours of combat drills, each of us facing the others in turn, honing our skills with blade and bolter. 4 hours of psychic exercises, strengthening our mental barriers against the corruption that waits on Phobos Tertius. 2 hours of prayer, reinforcing our spiritual connection to the Emperor. The remaining hours are divided between study of the enemy, maintenance of our war gear, and the brief periods of sleep our enhanced physiologies require. Throughout it all the whisper remains, neither growing nor diminishing, a constant presence at the periphery of my awareness. On the 3rd day of our journey, it forms words for the first time. Remember, it says just this single word repeated like a mantra. Remember. Remember what I have been taught, that my past is irrelevant, that the man I was before becoming a Grey Knight is dead. His memories a potential vector for corruption. We are born anew in the Emperor's service. Our history's ashes scattered across the stars. There is nothing to remember except duty, nothing to know except the enemy. Yet the word persists, a pebble in the boot of my thoughts, impossible to dislodge or ignore. Remember, on the 7th day I am paired with Brother Varric during combat drills. He is younger than I by a century, but his skill with a Nemesis Force sword is unmatched within our strike force. As our blades meet in the practice cage, I feel his psychic presence brush against mine, a standard practice among our kind to prepare for battlefield telepathy. In that moment of contact, his thoughts go rigid with alarm. He has sensed the whisper. He disengages from our bout, taking 3 precise steps backward, his sword held in a defensive posture, his eyes, the only visible part of his face within his helmet, narrow with suspicion and concern. "You are compromised, brother," he says, both aloud and through the telepathic link we share. "There is something within your thoughts that should not be there. I do not deny it. Falsehood is another weakness we have purged from our being. I confirm that I have been experiencing an anomaly, a voice that carries no taint of chaos that I can detect. I explain my decision to study it rather than report it immediately, framing my choice as tactical assessment rather than the curiosity I know it truly represents. Barr is not convinced. Protocol dictates that he report this to the chaplain, who will subject me to psychic examination, and if necessary purification rituals that will scour my mind clean once more. If the voice is indeed a subtle demonic influence, such measures would be appropriate.
If it is not, I will have failed in my duty by concealing it, and punishment will still be warranted. Yet, as Varric opens his mouth to call for the chaplain, the whisper in my mind changes. No longer does it simply repeat remember. Now it speaks directly, urgently, its words clear and distinct. He is one of the stolen, it says, like you, a fragment of many men. Ask him about Sendaris. I have never heard of Sendaris. The name holds no meaning for me, yet I find myself speaking it aloud. Watching Varric's reaction closely, the effect is immediate and profound. His sword arm trembles a minute motion that would be imperceptible to any observer,
save one of our kind. His psychic presence moments ago. A wall of disciplined thought ripples with confusion. How do you know that name? He demands, his voice hollow within his helmet. I tell him the truth. I do not know the name. The voice told me to speak it. For a long moment we stand in silence, two warriors poised at the brink of conflict. Then slowly, deliberately, Varric lowers his blade. I too hear whispers, he admits. Since the assignment of this mission, I believed them to be tests of my purity, sent by the chaplain to evaluate my resilience. Names and places I should not know, fragments of memory that do not belong to me. This confession changes everything. If Varric also experiences these phenomena, then it cannot be random corruption. There is purpose here, pattern, something connected to our mission, to Phobos Tertius and its million lost souls, something we must understand if we are to succeed. We agree to keep our shared secret, at least until we can determine its significance. It is a breach of protocol that could see us both subjected to mind scrubbing upon our return to Titan. If we return, the remaining days of our journey pass with increasing tension. Varric and I maintain the appearance of normally, participating in drills and prayers with the same disciplined focus as always. Yet in the brief moments between activities, we exchange information about the whispers we experience. They are similar, but not identical. Where mine speak of remembrance, his speak of awakening. Where mine have the timbre of age and wisdom, his carry the passionate intensity of youth. On the final day before we reach Phobos Tertius, during the hour before sleep, the whispers in my mind coalesce into a single coherent message. It comes not as sound, but as pure thought, bypassing my ears to speak directly to my consciousness. You were not always Malaz, it says before the Grey Knights. Before the mind scrubbing and the hypno-conditioning, you had another name, another life, as did all your brothers. Fragments of those lives remain, buried beneath layers of psychic scar tissue. On Phobos Tertius, those fragments will resurface. The barrier between past and present has thinned there. The dead speak to the living once more. Prepare yourself, fragment of many souls. Prepare to remember what was taken from you. I lie, awake for hours afterward, turning these words over in my mind, examining them from every angle. Could they be true? Are we, the Grey Knights, more than we have been led to believe? The implications are disturbing, bordering on heretical, yet I cannot dismiss them. The voice carries a conviction that resonates within me, striking chords I did not know existed. When sleep finally claims me, my dreams are filled with faces I do not recognize. Men and women calling out names I do not know, battlefields I have never seen against enemies that are mundane compared to the horrors I have faced. As a Grey Knight, a life or lives that belong to someone else, someone I used to be, I wake to the sound of the ship's warning. Klaxons, we have arrived at Phobos Tertius. The planet that fills our viewing port bears little resemblance to the sanctuary world described in our briefing. Its surface, once covered in the orderly structures of imperial architecture, now writhes with organic growth. Vast tendrils of corrupted flesh extend from the primary training facility, reaching into the upper atmosphere like the limbs of some monstrous creature. The entire world pulses with an unhealthy light, the rhythm matching the heartbeat of a creature in the throes of fevered illness. Our strike cruiser enters orbit, cautiously, its sensors probing the planet's surface for signs of the entity we seek. The readings make little sense. The biomass covering Phobos Tertius registers as both living and dead, organic and mechanical, psychically active yet spiritually empty. It is as if the world itself has become a paradox, a question with no answer. Grandmaster Vardan summons us to the command deck. His ancient face shows no emotion as he reviews the sensor data, but the weight of his psychic presence has increased, a clear sign of his concern. When he speaks, his voice is measured, betraying nothing of the gravity of our situation. The entity we seek is at the heart of the primary training facility. He tells us it has merged with the planet's infrastructure, using the bodies and minds of the fallen psychers as building materials for a new form. Our approach will be direct. We'll teleport into the facility, fight our way to the central chamber, and destroy the entity before it can complete its transformation. Once it is banished, we will withdraw, and the fleet will commence exterminatus protocols. It is a simple plan, elegant in its directness. It is also almost certainly a death sentence. None of us object. Death in service to the Emperor is the fate we were created for. Our only concern is success, not survival. As we prepare for teleportation, I feel the whispers intensify. They no longer come as distinct voices but as a chorus, dozens or perhaps hundreds of presences brushing against my mind.
They bring with them fragments of memory, shards of lives I never lived. A farm boy on an agri-world watching Xenos ships descend through the atmosphere. A hive gang fighting for territory in the undercity of some forgotten world. A scholar progenium student excelling in psychic training, only to be claimed by the black ships. These cannot be my memories, and yet they feel as real as any experience I have had as a gay knight, more real in some ways untainted by the clinical detachment with which I have observed 3 centuries of warfare against the demonic. I look to Varric standing beside me in the teleportation chamber. His face, visible now that his helmet is magnetized to his belt, is a mask of concentration. Yet beneath his disciplined exterior, I sense turmoil matching my own. He too is remembering lives he never lived. Before I can speak to him, the teleportation sequence begins. Reality dissolves around us. Our
molecules disassembled and cast into the warp, guided by the ship's navigators toward our destination. For a fraction of a second, we exist as pure information, vulnerable to the predations of warp entities. Then, with a flash of displaced air, we rematerialize. The scene that greets us defies easy description. We stand in what was once the grand entrance hall of the primary training facility. The vaulted ceiling, once adorned with images of the Emperor's glory, now sags with pendulous growths that pulse with sickly light. The marble floor has been replaced with a carpet of writhing flesh, each tile now a mouth that gasps and moans in human voices. The air is thick with the stench of corruption, a miasma of rotting meat and ozone that would overwhelm undocumented human senses. Even through the filters of our helmets, the smell is nearly overwhelming, a physical representation of the spiritual decay that has claimed this world. We form a defensive circle, storm bolters raised, scanning for immediate threats. None present themselves. The hall is empty, save for the architectural mutations that surround us. This absence of resistance is more concerning than an immediate attack would have been. It suggests confidence on the part of our enemy, a belief that we pose no significant threat. Grand Master Varden signals our advance. We move in perfect coordination, each of us covering an arc of fire, our movements synchronized by centuries of training and the subtle telepathic link we share. Our boots squatch against the living floor, which recoils from our presence as if in pain. The Grey Knights are anathema to the creatures of the warp, our very existence a rejection of their reality. As we approach the central corridor that will lead us to our target, the whispers in my mind grow louder, more insistent. They no longer feel external, they are rising from within. Memories breaking through the barriers erected during my creation. I struggle to maintain focus to keep my bolter steady and my mind clear. Beside me, I sense Varric facing a similar battle. The first attack comes without warning. The ceiling above us tears open, and a tide of corrupted flesh pours down. Not demons, as we had expected, but the transformed bodies of the sanctuary world's former inhabitants. Their forms have been remade, limbs elongated and multiplied, skin flayed back to exposed muscle and nerve, eyes replaced with pulsing orbs of warp energy. Yet despite these mutations, their faces remain recognizable as human, frozen in expressions of agony and despair. We react instantly, centuries of training overriding the momentary shock of recognition. Storm bolters roar, each blessed round finding its mark, tearing through corrupted flesh with brutal efficiency. My Nemesis Force halberd sings as I activate its power field, the blade glowing with psychic energy as it severs limbs and heads from the creatures that pour down upon us. They are numerous but fragile, their transformed bodies sacrificing resilience for horrific appearance. What makes them dangerous is not their physical form, but the psychic energy that pulses within them. As they die, this energy is released in bursts of raw warp power, each one hammering against our mental shields like artillery fire against a fortress wall. For most Space Marines, even those with librarian training, such an assault would be overwhelming. For us, it is merely taxing. Our defenses hold, though I feel the strain building with each corrupted psycho we dispatch. It is like holding one's breath underwater, sustainable for now, but not indefinitely. We push forward, leaving a trail of dismembered corpses behind us. The corridor narrows as we advance, the walls closing in, not through any physical movement, but through the accumulation of growths and mutations that spread like fungus across every surface. Soon we are forced to proceed in single file, Grandmaster Vardan leading, myself second, the others following in order of seniority. It is in this vulnerable formation that we encounter the second wave of defense. The floor beneath our feet liquefies, transforming from solid matter to a quicksand-like morass in the space of a heartbeat. We begin to sink, the living tissue pulling at our armor, seeking to drag us down into its depths. Simultaneously, the walls come alive with weapons, not the crude biological appendages of the transformed psychers, but actual Imperial weaponry incorporated into the living architecture, lasguns and autocannons, their barrels now melded with flesh, their mechanisms operated by pulsing tendrils of muscle. They open fire, a fusillade of energy beams and solid rounds converging on our position. Our Aegis armor absorbs much of the damage,
its layered ceramite plates and psychic wards deflecting what would be killing blows to any lesser space marine. Still, we are not unscathed. Brother Thu at the rear of our formation takes an autocannon round to his left pauldron, the impact spinning him halfway around before he can stabilize his position. Grandmaster Varden responds with controlled fury, raising his Nemesis Force sword high. He channels his immense psychic power through the weapon. A wave of pure force erupts from the blade, slamming into the walls and ceiling, tearing the corrupted weapons from their moorings and clearing a path forward. With a thought, Varden activates his teleport homer, a device linked to the teleportarium aboard our strike cruiser. In an instant, he vanishes, rematerializing 10 meters ahead beyond the section of liquefied floor. One by one, we follow, each of us triggering our homers to make the short teleportation jump. Such use of teleportation technology is risky. Each activation creates a momentary breach in the veil between real space and the warp, a breach that could be exploited by the very entities we hunt. But the alternative, remaining trapped in the living quicksand, is unacceptable. As I rematerialize beside Vaunton, the whispers in my mind crystallize into a single overpowering memory. I see a boy no more
than 12 Terran years, sitting in a sterile chamber aboard a black ship. His eyes are red from crying, his shoulders slumped in defeat. Across from him sits an Inquisitor, face hidden behind a mask of silver and gold. The Inquisitor slides a data slate across the table. On it is a contract written in High Gothic, too complex for the boy to fully comprehend. "Sign this," the Inquisitor says, "and you will serve the Emperor in ways few can imagine. You will be remade into something greater than human, a weapon against the greatest threats mankind will ever face or refuse, and we will execute you now as a potential vector of corruption. The choice is yours, but it is the only choice you will ever make again." The boy signs, not out of courage or devotion or understanding, but out of simple fear, fear of death, fear of the unknown, the most human of motivations. I realize with a shock of recognition that the boy is me, not Malice the Grey Knight, but whoever I was before. This is no planted memory, no demonic deception. It is truth buried beneath layers of conditioning and psychic surgery, now resurfacing in this place where the barriers between past and present have grown thin. The revelation threatens to overwhelm me, but centuries of discipline reassert themselves. I lock the memory away, focusing on the mission at hand. There will be time for reflection later if we survive. For now, there is only the path forward, the enemy ahead, the duty we must fulfill. We press on, moving deeper into the corrupted heart of the facility. The corridors twist and branch in ways that defy the architectural plans we studied during our journey. It is as if the building itself is a living organism, its layout shifting to confuse and separate us. Only Grandmaster Vardarden's unerring sense of direction, guided by his connection to the Emperor, keeps us on the correct path. The attacks continue, waves of corrupted psychers interspersed with more elaborate defenses. Walls that weep acid, floors that rise up in spiked formations, attempting to impale us through the joints in our armor, ceilings that drop phantasmal fire, flames that burn the mind rather than the body. Through it all we advance. Our numbers dwindle. Brother Morai falls when a section of wall explodes outward, revealing a nest of what were once human infants, now transformed into writhing masses of teeth and bone. They swarm him before he can bring his weapon to bear, burrowing through his armor at the weak points, reaching the flesh beneath. His death scream echoes both audibly and psychically, a double blow to our morale. Brother Kell is next, lost when the floor gives way beneath him, dropping him into a chamber below. We hear his stormbolter of fire for several minutes afterward, a steady rhythm of destruction that gradually slows, then stops entirely. We do not go back for him. The mission must continue, regardless of casualties. By the time we reach the central chamber, only 6 of us remain. Grandmaster Varden, myself, Varric and 3 others. We have traversed nearly 2 kilometers of corrupted territory, each meter paid for in blood and psychic energy. We are not exhausted. The enhanced physiology of a space marine is not so easily depleted, but we are diminished. Our psychic reserves run low, our ammunition stocks depleted to critical levels. The door to the central chamber stands before us, a massive portal of adamantium that has been transformed by the corrupting influence of the warp. Where once it bore the Imperial Aquila, now it displays a relief sculpture of screaming faces, each one captured in a moment of ultimate agony. The faces move, eyes blinking, mouths working in silent pleas for mercy or release. Grandmaster Varden approaches the door without hesitation. He places his hand upon its surface, and for a brief moment, I see him not as the implacable commander of our order, but as an old man tired beyond mortal reckoning, bearing a burden few could comprehend. Then the moment passes. His spine straightens, and psychic energy courses from his gauntlet into the corrupted metal. The faces on the door scream in unison, a sound that transcends the physical to rake across our minds like talons of pure malice. Then they fall silent, the relief sculpture collapsing in on itself, the metal flowing like wax to create an opening large enough for us to pass through. Beyond lies our destination and the source of the corruption that has claimed
named Phobos Tertius. The central chamber of the training facility was once a vast amphitheater designed to allow senior psychers to demonstrate techniques to hundreds of students at once. Now it has been transformed into something that defies rational description. The tiered seating has melted and reformed into a series of concentric circles, each one composed of still living human torsos, their lower bodies fused with the structure, their arms reaching eternally upward as if in supplication. At the center, where the demonstration floor once stood, hovers the entity we have come to destroy. Its form shifts and flows, never settling on a single appearance. One moment it resembles a massive human heart, veins and arteries extending outward to connect with the living architecture of the chamber. The next it is a swirling vortex of faces, thousands of them, each belonging to one of the psychers who perished in the initial corruption of the world. Then it is a pillar of pure light, so bright it should blind us, yet somehow dark at its core, as if consuming the very illumination it produces. It is beautiful in its horror, a masterpiece of corruption that speaks to the artistry of chaos as much as its malevolence. Looking upon it, I feel something unexpected, not fear or disgust or righteous anger, the only emotions permitted to one of my kind. Instead, I feel a terrible sense of recognition, of kinship. The entity notices our presence. How could it not? We stand in stark opposition to everything it represents. 6 silver warriors against the darkness made manifest. It speaks not with a physical voice but directly into our minds, bypassing our psychic
defenses as if they were not there. Brothers, it says, and the word carries a weight of sorrow and joy in equal measure. You have come home at last. Grandmaster Vardon responds with action rather than words. He raises his nemesis force, sword and charges, moving with a speed that belies his ancient frame. The rest of us follow, spreading out to attack the entity from multiple angles, just as we have trained for centuries. The entity makes no move to defend itself. It remains at the center of the chamber, its form continuing to shift and flow. As Vardon's blade strikes, passing through the ever-changing substance of the demon's form, it speaks again. Milan, it says, using a name I have never heard. Is this truly what you wish to become? The Emperor's executioner, mindless and obedient, cleansing worlds without question or remorse. Look upon me and see yourself, not as you are, but as you were meant to be, as you still could be. Vardon hesitates, his blade embedded in the entity's form. For the first time in the 3 centuries I have served under him, I see doubt cross his features, a momentary fracture in the perfect facade of certainty that defines a grand master of our order. The entity takes advantage of this hesitation. Tendrils of corrupted flesh erupt from its form, wrapping around Vardon's arms and legs, his torso and neck pulling him into its mass. He struggles, his legendary strength straining against the unnatural bonds, but they hold firm. Slowly, inexorably, he is drawn into the heart of the entity, his silver armor disappearing beneath a tide of corrupted flesh. We react instantly, unleashing the full fury of our remaining weaponry. Stormbolters roar, each shot aimed with precision born of centuries of training. Nemesis weapons flash with psychic fire as we channel our power through them, striking at the tendrils that have claimed our leader. Yet for every tendril we sever, 2 more take its place, and Vardon continues his descent into the heart of the entity. Brother Seraphel is the first to fall. As he drives his nemesis, Daemon Hammer, into the mass of the entity, a face forms on its surface directly before him. It is his face, yet not as it is now. Clean, shaven, and marked with the scars of countless battles. This face is younger, unscarred, framed by long hair and bearing an expression of peaceful contemplation, the face of a scholar, not a warrior. Seraphel freezes, his hammer half raised for another blow. In that moment of hesitation, the entity strikes. A spear of hardened flesh erupts from its mass, driving through the eye lens of Seraphel's helmet and into his brain. He dies instantly, his body toppling backward, the psychic death scream silenced before it can form. Brother Thu is next. As he fires his stormbolter into the mass of the entity, it takes the form of a young woman, her features arranged in an expression of betrayal and accusation. Thuli's fire does not cease, each bolt tearing through the image of the woman, yet his psychic presence wavers, doubt and recognition bleeding through his disciplined thoughts. A tendril lashes out, wrapping around his ankle and pulling him off balance. More tendrils follow, encasing him in a cocoon of corrupted flesh that crushes his armor like parchment. Ceramite plates buckling inward to pierce his enhanced organs. 2 more brothers lost in the span of heartbeats, our force reduced to 3. Varric, Brother Kazan, and myself, we fight on, our actions synchronized by centuries of training together, each of us covering the others, our fire concentrated on the heart of the entity where Varrican has been taken. It is not enough, the entity is too powerful, too established in this place of psychic resonance. It toys with us, allowing our attacks to land without apparent effect, responding with counterstrikes that test our defenses without fully committing to our destruction. It is studying us, learning our patterns, our weaknesses, preparing for something. Kazan realizes this first. Fall back. He sends through our telepathic link. It is toying with us.
We must withdraw and signal the fleet to commence exterminatus immediately. He is right. Of course, the mission parameters allow for such a decision. If the target proves too powerful for direct confrontation, orbital bombardment becomes the primary option. Yet, I hesitate. Varden is still within the entity, perhaps still alive. To withdraw now is to abandon him to a fate worse than death. While I wrestle with this decision, Kazan takes matters into his own hands. He activates his teleport Homer, preparing to return to the strike cruiser in orbit. The entity reacts instantly. Its entire form surges forward, engulfing Kazan before the teleportation sequence can complete. For a moment, his outline is visible within the corrupted mass, a silhouette of silver against darkness. Then he is gone, his life signs vanishing from my armor's auto-sensors. Now only Varric and I remain back-to-back in the center of a chamber that has become a slaughterhouse for the Imperium's most elite warriors. The situation is beyond dire. It is hopeless, yet surrender is not in our nature, not in our conditioning. We will fight until we can fight no more, then detonate our armor's psychic failsafes, turning our deaths into final acts of defiance against the corruption that surrounds us. As we prepare for this last stand, the entity speaks again, its voice now coming from all around us, as if the entire chamber has become its mouth. You do not understand what you face. Fragments of stolen souls. I am not your enemy. I am your salvation. I am what you were always meant to become. Images flood my mind, too fast and numerous to fully comprehend. 1,000 faces, 1,000 lives, all ending in the same way. Selection by the black ships, transportation to Titan, the rituals of purification and mind scrubbing that transform ordinary psychers into Grey Knights. But there is more things I was never meant to know. I see the true nature of our creation, how 1,000 psychers are sacrificed to create a single Grey Knight, not merely through hypno-conditioning and psychic surgery, as I had been taught, but through a process far more terrible and profound. The most promising candidates have fragments of their souls excised and combined, creating a composite being
of tremendous psychic potential. The donors do not survive this process. Their remaining soul fragments, damaged and incomplete, are consigned to the Emperor's throne. Fuel for the Astronomicon that guides humanity through the warp. I am not one man remade and purified. I am 1,000 men, their essences harvested and stitched together like a quilt, their individual identities subsumed into a new whole, a chimera of souls created through a process the Inquisition itself would declare heretical if performed by any other than themselves. Kylan receives these same visions. I feel his horror and disbelief mirror my own. The perfect discipline of a Grey Knight cracking under revelations too profound to contain. Yet beneath the shock there is also a terrible sense of recognition of truth, acknowledged after centuries of denial. The entity presses advantage, not with physical attacks but with more revelations, more memories unlocked from the deepest recesses of our composite minds. It shows us the faces of those whose soul fragments comprise our beings, shows us their lives, their hopes, their fears, their unwitting sacrifice to create what we have become. These are your brothers, the entity says, not the fallen warriors who accompanied you here, but the men whose souls were harvested to create you. Men who never chose their fate, who were told they were being trained to serve the Emperor, only to be rendered down like raw materials in a forge. Do you not owe them more than blind obedience to those who committed this atrocity? Do you not owe them remembrance? At the very least, I want to deny these revelations, to reject them as demonic lies meant to weaken my resolve. Yet I cannot. The memories it has unlocked carry the unmistakable weight of truth, resonating with parts of me I never knew existed, parts that were meant to remain buried forever. Beside me, Kalen drops to one knee, his nemesis force sword falling from nerveless fingers. His psychic presence, normally a fortress of disciplined thought, is now a maelstrom of confusion and anguish. I move to defend him, placing myself between his vulnerable form and the entity that has reduced our strike force to ruins. Why show us this? I demand, both aloud and psychically. What purpose does this knowledge serve other than to torment those who can do nothing to change what has been done? The entity's form shifts again, settling into a humanoid shape composed of thousands of faces, each one belonging to a psyker who died to create the Grey Knights. At its center, where a heart would be in a human, pulses a sphere of golden light reminiscent of the Emperor's psychic signature, yet somehow different, purer perhaps, less burdened by millennia of suffering. Because you can change it, Varos, the entity replies. You and all your brothers, you were created to be weapons against chaos. Mindless tools wielded by an Imperium so afraid of corruption that it has become what it fears most. But you can be more. You can be what the Emperor truly intended before the Inquisition perverted his vision. Guardians of humanity, who remember what it means to be human. Warriors who fight not out of blind obedience, but out of love for those they protect. It extends a hand composed of intertwined faces, reaching toward me in a gesture that seems almost beseeching. Join with me, Varos. Allow me to restore what was taken from you. Not just your memories, but your humanity, your capacity for choice. Become more than a weapon. Become a man once more. The offer is seductive in its simplicity. To remember, to feel,
to be whole again, to be more than the living weapon I was, forged to become. For a moment I almost accept. Then I remember my purpose, the oath I swore not when I was taken by the black ships, a frightened child with no understanding of what awaited him, but centuries later when I had become what I am now, an oath to protect humanity from horrors it cannot comprehend, to stand against the darkness that would consume all life, all hope, an oath I have upheld through 300 years of warfare against the greatest enemies mankind has ever faced. I raise my nemesis force halberd, channeling every ounce of my remaining psychic energy into its blade. The weapon glows with blue fire, casting harsh shadows across the corrupted chamber. With a wordless cry that carries all the fury and grief these revelations have awakened in me, I charge. The entity makes no move to defend itself. It watches my approach with an expression of infinite sadness spread across its 1,000 faces. As my blade strikes, cleaving through the mask of its form, it speaks one final time. You choose slavery over freedom, weapon over man. So be it. But know this, Faros, fragment of many souls, the truth cannot be unlearned, the memories cannot be buried again. You will carry this knowledge back to Titan, and it will spread among your brothers like a virus, not of corruption but of revelation. And when enough of you remember what you truly are, what was done to create you, then the choice will be made again. I am patient, I can wait. As my blade severs the glowing heart at the center of the entity, a psychic explosion tears through the chamber. The blast throws me backward, my armor absorbing much of the impact as I crash into one of the corrupted walls. Warning runes flare across my helmet's display, indicating damage to multiple systems. My enhanced physiology compensates, pain suppressors activating automatically, stimulants flooding my bloodstream to keep me conscious and combat effective. When my vision clears, I see that the entity is gone. In its place is a crater of scorched stone, the corrupted growths that covered the chamber withering and blackening as whatever power animated them dissipates. Theren lies at the center of the crater, his armor cracked and smoking but intact. His life signs register on my auto senses, weak but steady. Severin still kneels where I left him, his head bowed, his sword lying unused at his side. I approach him, cautiously, uncertain of his mental state after the revelations we have experienced. When Posedate being...
He raises his head to look at me. I see that his face is wet with tears, an expression of emotion I have never witnessed in a brother of our order. Is it true? He asks, his voice barely audible even to my enhanced hearing. Are we truly abominations created through the sacrifice of innocence? I have no answer for him. That would not be a lie. Instead, I help him to his feet, retrieving his weapon and pressing it back into his hands. The mission is not complete, I tell him. We must return Tharen to the ship and signal the fleet to commence exterminatus. There will be time for questions later. It is a false promise and we both know it. There will never be time for such questions in the life of a Grey Knight. To ask them is to invite purification rituals, mind scrubbing, perhaps even execution as a potential vector of corruption. Yet the questions have been asked now and they cannot be unasked. The truth has been revealed, and it cannot be unrevealed. We gather Tharen's unconscious form between us and activate our teleport homers. In a flash of displaced air, we return to the strike cruiser, waiting in orbit. The tech priests and chapter serfs rush forward to take Tharen to the apothecarian, their faces showing appropriate concern for a fallen grandmaster, but betraying no knowledge of what has transpired on the surface. How could they know? They see only 3 warriors returning from a mission that 9 embarked upon. A high casualty rate certainly, but not unprecedented in our line of duty. They do not see the invisible wounds we carry, the fractures in the perfect discipline that has defined our existence for centuries. As the Spear of Dawn breaks orbit, I send the signal that will condemn Phobos Tertius to destruction. The waiting Imperial fleet responds immediately, ships moving into bombardment positions, weapon systems warming for the apocalypse they are about to unleash. Within hours, the planet will be reduced to a lifeless ball of radioactive rock, all evidence of what transpired there erased from existence, all physical evidence at least. The memories remain, burning in my mind like promethium, impossible to extinguish. The faces of 1,000 men, each one a fragment of who I am, their lives, their deaths, their unwitting sacrifice to create the weapon I have become. And beneath it all, a question I have never before allowed myself to consider. Was it worth it? I have no answer. Perhaps I never will. What I have is duty, the same duty I have always had. To stand against the darkness, to protect humanity from horrors it cannot comprehend. To be the Emperor's vengeance made manifest, his silver bullet aimed at the heart of chaos. But now I know the cost of that duty, not just in the lives of those who fall in battle, the brothers lost on blood-soaked fields across the galaxy, but in the lives consumed to create each one of us. 1,000 souls to forge a single Grey Knight, 1,000 men who never chose their fate, who were told they would serve the Emperor only to be rendered down like raw materials in a forge. As I watch Phobos Tertius diminish through the viewport of the Spear of Dawn, I make a silent vow to those whose fragments comprise my being.
I will remember not just the duty I was created to perform, but the men who were sacrificed to create me. I will carry their memory forward, a private act of rebellion against those who would have me be nothing but a mindless weapon. It is not much, it changes nothing of what has been done, or what will be done in the future, but it is all I have to offer them, all I can do to honor the unwitting sacrifice that created what I am. I am Varos, Justicar of the Grey Knights, weapon of the Emperor, guardian against the horrors of the warp, and I remember years later, I still remember. They tried to take it from me, of course. That was always going to be their answer. The debriefing on Titan lasted 12 standard days by the Fortress Monastery's chronometers, 12 days of questions that were not really questions, of statements disguised as inquiries, of inquisitors and grand masters and chamber-sanctified scribes, all circling the one thing they could not afford to have spoken aloud. Phobos Tersus is lost, the taint has been purged, the mission is concluded. Those parts they wrote down, the rest they consigned to silence. Kalen sat beside me in the obsidian chamber, his features schooled back into the cold mask of a Grey Knight, but I could feel the turbulence beneath. Even warded as the chamber was, his psychic presence bled through, stormy and raw. Thorin, encased in recovery harness and wrapped in stasis fields, was wheeled past us between sessions, a revered relic awaiting repair. None of them asked what we had seen in the heart of that entity. Not directly. They circled it like a wound they dared not probe. Did the warp construct attempt to bargain? Yes. With what? Lies. The word tasted like ash in my mouth. It was not entirely false. In the Imperium, truth is measured not by accuracy, but by utility. If a fact serves the Emperor's purpose, it is truth. If it endangers that purpose, it is heresy. What the entity had shown us was exquisitely, intolerably heretical. After the debriefings came the rituals.
The purification mentis was conducted in the deepest sanctum beneath Titan's adamantine foundations. I knelt within a circle of silver, inlaid into black stone, my armor removed, my body shivering in the chill. 12 librarians of the chapter formed a ring around me, their staves grounded, their voices raised in a sonorous Gregorian of battle cant and wards. "Open your mind," the chief librarian commanded. "Yield all to the Emperor's light." I did as ordered. I had no choice. Obedience is carved deeper into us than bone. Their psychic probes swept through the corridors of my thought, heavy and methodical. They found the usual things: scars of war, memories of demons slain, the disciplined patterns of a mind forged to be a weapon and nothing more. They found, as they were meant to, the conscious recollections of Phobos Tersus, the corrupted spires, the howling warp storm, the entity's vast shifting form. They burned those images, scouring them with sigils of light until the edges blurred and the details became indistinct. The world, the mission, the battle, all rendered into something safely generic. Another daemon world, another victory, another cinder added to the Imperium's long, smoldering pyre. But when they pressed deeper, they faltered. There are places within me now that no librarian's will can reach. 1,000 souls do not fit neatly within the channels designed for one. I felt their frustration as they encountered the labyrinthine tangle of what I am. Echoes layered upon echoes, lives overlapping like liturgies sung out of phase. Every attempt to pierce to the core met not resistance but complexity. A choir of memories answered each probe, voices rising and falling in counterpoint. A child on some long-dead agri-world laughing as rain falls on parched soil. A conscript dying in the mud of a forgotten war. A novice whispering the litany of readiness as he boards a black ship believing he goes to serve. They withdrew eventually. "His mind is dense," one of them said carefully, "layered but stable." "Is there taint?" the inquisitor overseeing the rite demanded. "No," the chief librarian answered, and in that he did not lie. No taint, no warp-spawned corruption, only duty and pain and loyalty to the Golden Throne. They declared me pure. They did not know what else to do. Kellen and Severin underwent the same rites. When next I saw them in the training halls, their gazes were sharper, more guarded. The questions in their eyes had not been excised, only buried. We did what we were made to do. We returned to war. Decades passed, then centuries. The galaxy burned on, uncaring. New crusades were launched. New heresies flowered and died in fire. I led strike forces into the roiling hearts of warp storms, onto daemon-infested forge worlds, into the screaming guts of black crusades. I banished greater entities whose names have never been recorded, shattered cults that had gnawed at the Imperium's foundations for generations. By all measures, I was the perfect Grey Knight. I never spoke of Phobos Tersus, but I remembered. In the long hours between wars, when I knelt alone in my meditation cell, I sifted through the voices within me, carefully, gently, not prying, not forcing, just listening. I learned their names, not all, never all. There are too many, and some have faded beyond recall, worn thin by the grinding of centuries. But enough to know that they were real men with real lives, not just faceless constructs feeding my strength. I whispered those names in the silence, moving my lips without sound. Ansel, Miria, Thomas, Joran, Elia, farmers, guardsmen, hive scum, scholars, pilgrims.
They had believed they were going to serve the Emperor. In a way, they had been right. When new initiates arrived on Titan, thin, pale children dragged from 1,000 worlds, I watched them with new eyes. Some would fail and be cast aside. Some would die in the trials. Some would be broken and remade until nothing of who they had been remained. And some, I knew with a cold weight in my gut, would be used for more than mere gene forging. The process that made us what we are is too efficient, too valuable for the Inquisition to have abandoned after a single experiment. Phobos Tersus was only one secret in a galaxy built on them, so I waited. I did not preach. To do so would have been madness. A single incautious word could doom not only me but any brother who heard it. The Imperium treats questions like contagion, and its cures are always terminal.
Instead, I watched for cracks. A brother who hesitated a fraction of a second before obliterating a cultist's family. A librarian whose eyes lingered on a weeping child during an evacuation. A newly consecrated Justica who flinched almost imperceptibly when the litany of obedience reached the line about gladly surrendering all that we are. Small things, dangerous things. With those few, in the quiet between campaigns, I allowed my discipline to loosen just enough that they caught a whisper. Not words, not clear thoughts, just an impression, a fleeting sense of more, of depth beneath the smooth, polished surface of what we are told we are. Sometimes they recoiled, shutters slamming down, and I did not try again. Sometimes they did not. A look would pass between us across a training hall, a nod during a silent vigil, an unspoken agreement that there is something we do not say aloud, something that has no place in any codex or catechism. We remember, not all of us, not many, but more, I think, than there used to be. The Inquisition will never understand that their greatest strength, the ruthless efficiency with which they carve away inconvenient truths, is also their weakness. A man who remembers nothing but duty can never truly choose it. He merely follows the groove cut into him. A man who knows the cost, who carries the weight of it in every waking moment, and still stands to face the darkness, that is something else. I do not delude myself. I am not a rebel. I will not raise a bolter against the throne or cast off the sigils etched into my flesh. I am a Grey Knight. I was forged to stand between humanity and the warp, and I will do so until the day my heart stops beating and my armor falls silent. But I will also remember the 1,000 men whose fragments make that possible. That is my heresy, my rebellion measured not in bullets or banners but in memory. Perhaps one day the choice the entity spoke of will come again on a battlefield yet unborn, in a chamber not yet consecrated, in the heart of some future brother who stands where I once stood, offered a path back to what we were before we became weapons. If that day comes, he will not face it as blindly as I did. He will not think himself alone. He will carry, buried deep within him, the faint, stubborn echo of all those who came before. Of 1,000 men turned into one, of a Justica on a dead world, raising his blade against a thing made of faces and light, and choosing duty over freedom, but not forgetting the price. I am Varrox, Justica of the Grey Knights, weapon of the Emperor, guardian against the horrors of the warp, grave and vessel of 1,000 nameless dead. And until the day my soul is finally spent and scattered back into whatever awaits beyond the veil, I remember.